Well, Mike, here we are at 8:30 in the morning. Wait, it's not. It's
No, it's not.
1:40. No.
Yeah.
We've had busy days. We haven't gotten to this. We meant to do it at 8:30 this morning, and holy cow, what a busy day.
Stuff is happening.
Stuff is happening, and I want to talk about alcohol delivery.
What?
So one of my favorite things to do in the pandemic is have alcohol delivered. It's just a thing. And so anyway, so I've signed up with, Bevmo and Drizzly and everybody who will bring me a bottle of mezcal or scotch
Are
or
you really a
whatever.
mezcal drinker? That is so out of character.
Why?
I just can't see you dancing on a table eating the worm. No.
You're drink you that's a different kind of mezcal. That's the cheap stuff. I don't drink cheap stuff.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I don't.
Designer mezcal.
That's right.
Mhm.
So, today I get a thing from Drizzly that apparently they had a data breach and they're going to pay me money because of a settlement.
Really?
Yeah, so somebody out there knows what I've been buying. What do you think they could use that information for? Anyway, some
To
social
sell you
engineering.
more alcohol,
Yeah,
to extort you if you've been drinking a lot of absinthe. I don't know.
I think that's true. All right, folks, for folks watching, put in the chat. I'm curious. Like, do you get alcohol delivered? Is this just me? I mean, clearly it's a business model that people
I
use.
don't, but I don't drink real alcohol. I drink watery beer.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Fine. Of course you do. All
It's
right.
for hydration.
And by the way, this just in, and you just finished a media call about this.
Yeah.
Kaseya got the encryption key from about REvil, right?
They got the decryption
Decryption key. Sorry, the decryption key. Sorry,
important distinction.
Decryption key. Sorry, I've had
Yeah.
too much alcohol delivered. So yeah.
It's a universal decryption key, which means it's supposed to work on anybody.
It's supposed to work anywhere in the universe?
Anywhere in the universe that has been slammed by the REvil malware gang.
But how did they get it?
So that's why I've been talking to media. This is a subject of some speculation. So what Kaseya says is they were given the key by a trusted third party, and that's it. And reporters have been calling them, and they are not tipping their hand. So we figure there's probably 4 theories here. Number one, which is my favorite, is that the U.S. government derived the key. And the way that they would have been able to do that without massive amounts of supercomputing power and time is if there was some kind of logic flaw that the gang wasn't aware of. And we don't want to make them aware of that, which is why it would be important to not tip our hand as to where the key came from, because that might tell them, okay, our stuff is wrong. Door number 2 is that the gang leaked it themselves to dial down the heat, right? There's basically a manhunt going on right now. Door number 3 is that an affiliate leaked it, maybe for the same reason, but maybe because they just wanted to do a good thing for the world. I highly doubt that. And then, theory number 4 is that the Russian government did it, made them leak the key, because we've started to talk about, and there's $10 million reward out there if somebody is able to connect ransomware operators to the Russian government, or we'll just say their home government. And so they want the heat dialed down too. So it's one of those. My money is on door number 1.
All right. Well, and so we don't know if we'll ever find out, but good news for Kaseya customers, right?
Yeah, well, but the Kaseya customers, remember, are the managed service providers, right? They're not giving keys to victims.
Right.
They're giving keys to their customers, which passed it along to the victims, right? The bad one, the VSA agent, they installed that at all, or the real victim organization. So, I think it's going to take a while for that to percolate down, which means the victims needed to have raised their hands and told their MSP, I am affected by this, if the MSP wasn't proactively looking for everybody that was victimized. So I believe In fact, I know that there are some victims that didn't want to say anything about it because they were hit very lightly, don't want their insurance company to know. That just blows up, premium costs, and maybe didn't tell their MSP that they were affected by this. So,
Yeah, yeah.
it's still pretty bubbly.
Oh, and holy cow! Speaking of insurance, I just talked to an organization earlier today that
Oh,
had to drop their ransomware insurance because it just got too expensive.
yeah.
So either insurance companies are dropping customers and just saying we're not going to cover you, or they're raising the price of ransomware insurance so high that it's out of reach for organizations.
Yep. And, the other things that I've heard them say are, if you don't have pervasive use of multi-factor authentication and 24/7 monitoring, we won't insure you.
Yeah.
No, in fact, it's only one that has said that, and they just walked away from the table.
Yeah. I mean, I have words, but
yeah,
I'll hold those words. All right. Let's we had a whole thing planned and then had to jump into that urgent news about liquor delivery and REvil.
Yeah.
All right. So this week's threats and vulnerabilities. What do you got?
Okay. Let's see. Before I get into that, let me just give you some quick hits because some other things have happened this week that I think are worth chatting about. So, big one, we finally identified the Chinese as behind the exchange attack. We knew this was coming, right? We saw
you called it. I think you said it last week. Yeah.
Yeah. What they did was they named 4 individuals, and they published a really good piece on the TTPs used by China. Tools, tactics, procedures. So, spoiler: they use compromised home routers and temporary proxy systems for their access. And what that means is blocking China doesn't do any good. It's interesting that we limited it to naming and shaming some people rather than accusing the government. And I think the message that we delivered is this: we see you, we've identified your people, and you get one mulligan before we treat you like Russia and call this a government op. Okay. So that happened this week. Do you remember when there was ransomware hitting hospitals real hard? And UVM in Virginia was one of them. Okay.
Yeah.
They have figured out now how that started. So this is a good story. An employee took a computer home, and while at home with this computer, opened email from his homeowners association. That ended up being malware, and it went into hibernation. And when the employee went back and plugged the computer into the network, the ransomware was activated. So your home office, network, computer, etc., really are being targeted to get to your business. This is another example of that.
And,
wow.
And by the way, we always get the question when there's a ransomware attack: how did it get in? And most organizations don't say, right? You don't know unless it's an obvious one like a Kaseya or something like that. Here is an example. So
Yep.
Yep.
Well, mostly it's because somebody bites, like on a phishing message, gives away a password, and somebody walks into the network. That's really usually how it happens.
Yeah. And hey, what's going on in Capitol Hill? I saw that they.
Well, senators have introduced a bill that we also expected to be coming because they were yakking about this and kind of taking feedback on it. And apparently they didn't listen to me because now they've dropped this bill that requires incident notification within 24 hours. So now this is only applicable to federal agencies, government contractors, and what do they say? Critical infrastructure owners and operators for incidents that pose a threat to national security.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good reason for doing it, but it's hard to report something that you don't fully understand. And so there's, going to be growing pains with this. If this bill passes and we have to enact this, people are going to have to say things that they're not ready to say, and they're going to end up being wrong,
Yep.
Let's see. This is another good one here. And this has flown under the radar unless you know people in the title and escrow business and people are handling mortgages. I would call this the hack of the week. It's called CloudStar. They are a service provider for escrow and mortgage firms. And this is a pretty high impact, right? And how much real estate is changing hands right now. So, that one, we're not going to dwell on that too much because it's just, yet another ransomware attack. But this one happens to affect a lot of businesses. And so a bunch of people's homes are not going to close.
That's sad.
Okay, I'm sad. I'm sorry I laughed at that. If you have a home that's not going to close, I'm sorry I laughed at that.
Now you're laughing about that, Mike. That's very sad.
All right.
Aw. All
All
right.
right.
I think you're just laughing because the government folks didn't listen to you when you told them what to do on this LinkedIn Live, and
They don't. They,
senators
they don't
they
pay
just
attention to me.
didn't listen.
They
Yeah.
don't.
Hey, if you're listening to this on LinkedIn Live, hit a little thumbs up if you think the government should listen to Mike and do whatever Mike says. All right.
Why was there no thumbs down little thing?
That's the heart. The heart really means thumbs down. It's the
Okay.
southern. It's the southern. Bless your heart.
Ah.
Um, any new vulnerabilities that folks
All
need to be
right.
aware of?
Yeah. Just a couple I would point out. And one of them just is the gift that keeps on giving. It's the third Microsoft print spooler and third patch coming, a third vulnerability, third patch. So it turns out you can, as an unprivileged user, load a piece of malware as if it were a printer driver. That is oversimplified, and it will run with system privileges. So this is very
Mm.
dangerous. Anyone inside your organization can basically take over your organization. And then there's this other one that's really, really got people in a tizzy. It's the Microsoft SAM access problem. So SAM is the security accounts manager database. And because of overly permissive access control, it allows an unprivileged user to access sensitive registry keys, meaning that a user can install software, any software, and run it. But you can also use this access to grab user passwords using pass the hash or some other technique. So this is really bad. Both of those are seriously bad. They're seriously bad. They're encased in your network and it would require basically somebody to already have access into your network, but they could escalate privileges and do a lot of damage.
Okay, so the other story that we haven't talked about that happened since we were last live is this NSO group thing. The
Yeah.
Israeli. It's an Israeli group, right? That
Yeah.
sold technology that allowed governments, people to snoop on people's phones. I mean, that's a big story.
Well, I mean, I don't think many people are, it is a big story, but I don't think many people are actually surprised by this. That's the product they sell. That's what it's for, right? So are you surprised that a company that sells software that is specifically designed to compromise phones for the stated purpose of law enforcement and preventing terrorism is being used by oppressive countries to monitor rights activists and journalists? It seems to me like the market is working exactly the way it should with a predictable outcome.
No, I mean, I'm not surprised, but I mean, I think there's a big surprise in am I surprised? No, I guess I'm really not. That's a good question. And I think any journalist has always thought, I wonder who's listening on my phone.
Yeah.
Group of really skeptical people, right? That's where infosec professionals and journalists meet. They're the most skeptical people on the earth.
Yeah.
But so what's the backstory here?
So the backstory, as far as I understand it, someone leaked phone numbers, and I don't know how the leak happened, right? That were targeted by NSO software. So maybe it's somebody inside that organization that and they maintain some database of all of the phone numbers that their product is being using. I don't know. But when the list was leaked, I think it's 80 journalists worldwide jumped on this, investigated, and found out that many of the phone numbers don't belong to criminals and terrorists, but activists and journalists.
And a
So,
princess. Yep.
and a princess, and like the family of the president of Mexico, right? So that was a massive journalistic undertaking, and yeah, that is a good part of the story. I think the 30,000 foot view is interesting too. Again, this is how the market works. If it's legal to sell this stuff out of a country, there is going to be buyers, and you can't control what happens with the software once it's been delivered. But NSO isn't the only one. And what's starting is basically a mercenary economy, right? Hacking for hire. This is not a good road that we're starting down here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not good. But what do you do besides make it illegal? And wouldn't that have to be done, with agreement? And do we trust international agreements?
Yeah.
We know Russia follows all of them.
Yeah, that's a good
and so
question.
does China.
Huh.
I mean, we'd need assurance that governments wouldn't use tools like this. And who trusts that, right?
Nah. I mean, it's a rat's nest. And I don't have any good ideas on how this can be controlled. my sense is that it can't, and we'll have to do it with law enforcement and international sanctions. So private operators that get into business, to hack as a service can run afoul of the law. Selling software that can be abused is a little different. So that would require sanctions for countries that allow it. I'm pretty sure we're not going to sanction Israel. So our starting position is kind of bad for that conversation. There's a really good New York Times article talking about how this is growing, meaning freelance operators that sell these services to governments.
Yeah. By the way, my email box and everything, speaking of sanctioning Israel, is just full of people with opinions about Ben and Jerry's joining the BDS movement and not selling to the Israeli occupied territories. But that's neither here nor there. Mike, cheer us up. I need something, man. Kicker at the end. What do you got?
Okay, the only one I could think of, and I'm this is not going to make you laugh,
Mike,
but it is interesting.
Okay, what?
Okay, so it's an interesting iPhone vulnerability. So here's the deal. There was a vulnerability announced some time ago that Apple silently patched, and it had to do with how the phone handles SSIDs with percent signs in them, right? So this is the name that a wireless access point throws off, that says like, AT&T wireless or whatever. Well, it turns out that it had a problem handling these SSIDs with percent signs, and it would cause a phone to go into a kind of a infinite reboot cycle, right? So for a denial of service. Well, some researchers have figured out that you can use the same vulnerability for remote code execution in the following way. So if you broadcast a wireless SSID and the name of that network, that SSID, service set identifier, ends with percent @ that's what it is. Just associating with the access point that's broadcasting that SSID will compromise the phone. So how could this be abused? Well, how about going to a public place and broadcasting that SSID of, free airport Wi-Fi percent @ and just starting to collect access to phones? I mean, that would be so easy to do. It's patched, but wow, that one really would lend itself to a lot of mayhem if somebody wanted to just, go nuts with it, because it's just too easy.
I mean, even funnier is, percent @ you could have somebody just trying to make like a cartoon curse and accidentally get access and whatever.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, Mike, this has been wonderful. I'm sorry, everybody,
wonderful.
that we did it so late in the day.
But we have to.
But we had to. There were things. And then we got to do urgent news. So there you go.
Yeah.
And, follow me for more alcohol delivery conversation. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us.
And follow me to find out what happens with this Kaseya. So we're, there's a bunch of investigative journalists that are like really want to know where this key came from. And so if I find out, maybe they'll show up on Twitter. Who knows?
Yeah. You mean the decryption key. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.